When you think of Japan, you think of anime, sushi, bullet trains, neon signs in Tokyo. 1 in 5 Americans watch anime now, a number that's doubled in just the last 5 years. But Japan has some of the strongest wealth-building principles in the world, and most Americans have never heard of them. Today, we're looking at 7 of them. Now, despite both cultures loving anime, they have quite a bit of difference in other areas, especially when it comes to money and how we relate to it. In America, spending is celebrated. The nicer car, the bigger house, the vacation everyone posts, all of it gets treated as proof that life is going well. People go past what they can actually afford to keep that image up. And the culture has created ways to fake the luxury lifestyle without having the money for it. Buy now, pay later. Credit card balances that never quite clear. And the gag is, no one ever has to know. In Japan, restraint gets the praise instead. Minimalism is actually one of Japan's most recognized cultural exports, rooted in centuries of Zen Buddhist teaching about simplicity and detachment from possessions. Living with less isn't treated as lacking something in Japanese culture. It's treated as discipline. A book put this in front of me years ago, right when I was headed down the broke-rich path myself. That's essentially looking rich on the outside while being in the negative financially. It introduced me to a century-old Japanese budgeting method, kakeibo, and that one method led me to several others. Today, we're looking at 7 Japanese principles that help you build quiet wealth, all of which I personally implement in my life to this day. We start with the one that started it all. Because before you can fix what your money is doing, you have to see where it's going. Principle 1. Kakeibo. See where your money is going. The first principle is the one that started all of this for me. Most people think their biggest expense is the reason they can't save. The rent, the car payment, the groceries. But for a lot of people, the real damage happens somewhere smaller. The stuff that never registers as a decision at all. The money doesn't disappear, it just stops getting noticed. There's a Japanese practice built to fix exactly that. Kakeibo, a handwritten household ledger over a century old. A journalist named Hani Motoko introduced it in 1904 as a household ledger designed to help women manage household expenses. Running the household budget was already a woman's job in that era. What was missing was a real system for doing it well, something that needed nothing but paper and a pen, no formal training, no permission from anyone else. It works like this. Every month, 4 questions get asked. What's coming in? How much of it you want to protect as savings? What's actually going out the door? And the one that matters most. How can this get better? Not how can this be perfect, just better. That single shift removes most of the guilt people usually attach to tracking money at all. The daily part matters just as much as the monthly part. Every purchase gets written down by hand. The traditional system sorts spending into 4 categories, but the simplest version comes down to 2 labels. Need, for something that genuinely had to be bought. Want, for everything else. That single word next to each purchase is what actually makes the monthly question, how can this improve, answerable? Without it, the end of the month is just a vague feeling about where the money went. With it, there's an honest, specific record to look back on. The label works harder than it sounds like it should for a specific reason. A banking app shows a number that flashes and disappears, gone as fast as it appeared. Writing a purchase down and choosing need or want forces a half second of actual thought a tap never asks for. Was this necessary? Would it happen again tomorrow without thinking? That half second of friction is the entire point. Apps remove friction on purpose because frictionless spending is spending nobody questions. Kakeibo puts the question back. This is what it actually looks like in practice. Someone earning $4,500 a month swears there's nothing left by the 3rd week. One night, instead of just checking a banking app, they sit down and write out a purchase by hand. A delivery order, $22. Then, right next to it, the label. Want. They keep going for 30 days. Every purchase, labeled need or want. By the end of it, $150 turns out to be sitting in subscriptions they forgot existed. Another 300 in delivery orders that each felt small alone. A membership that hasn't been opened since spring, worth another $150. $600. Not eliminated, just finally visible. Run that forward. $600 a month is $7,200 a year, money that was already being earned and already landing in the account. Invest that same $7,200 every year for 10 years at an average return of 10%. That's close to what the stock market has historically returned over the long run. Do that, and it turns into well over $100,000. Not from a raise, not from a second job. From money that was already there, simply redirected the moment it became visible. Try this tonight. A notebook, not an app, because writing it by hand is part of what makes it work. For the next 30 days, write down every purchase. At the end of each week, sort it into 2 piles. Spending you'd defend. Spending you barely remember. That second pile is where the money's been leaking. The first financial problem most people have isn't overspending. It's spending without ever looking at it directly. And once you can see where it's going, a harder question follows right behind it. How much of it bought something that never actually got used? Principle 2, Matanai. Stop wasting what you already earned. The second principle picks up right where that leaves off. The Japanese have a word for the specific kind of waste this is, mottainai. It doesn't translate cleanly into English. The closest version is a pang of guilt over letting value go to waste, paired with real respect for what a resource cost to create in the first place. An object doesn't lose its worth just because it's no longer new. Its worth is in what it can still do. This isn't a small cultural quirk. It shows up in real numbers. Government figures put U.S. food waste at more than 300 pounds per person a year. Japan's figure sits at around 80 pounds per person. That's roughly 4 times as much, and food is just the most measurable version of a much bigger pattern. There's a reason this kind of waste happens so easily, and it's worth understanding. The good feeling of buying something happens right at checkout. That's backed by real research on consumer behavior, not just an opinion. The reward and the actual use of a thing are 2 separate events psychologically, which means a purchase can feel completely satisfying the moment it's bought, then sit untouched for years, having already delivered everything it was ever going to deliver. Picture one actual object instead of a category. A blender, bought 2 years ago, used twice, sitting in the back of a cabinet since. It cost money once. It's earned nothing since. That's the real measure of waste, and it has nothing to do with the price on the receipt. It's the cost divided by how many times something actually gets used. A $200 item used constantly is excellent value. A $30 item that's never touched is waste, even though it cost less. This same respect for value applies even after something breaks. There's a Japanese art form built entirely around it. Kintsugi. When pottery cracks, instead of getting thrown away, it gets repaired with actual gold. The repaired piece ends up more valuable than it was before it broke. The crack isn't hidden, it's highlighted, because the object's history is treated as part of its worth, not something to erase. Now take a real look around your own space, your closet, your kitchen drawers, your subscription list, your fridge. How much of what's sitting there is money that already left your account and never delivered anything back? That number is your leak, and most people have never actually added it up. It's usually bigger than they'd guess, and it's almost never one big item. It's the accumulation of 100 small ones. There's a version that hides especially well too. Subscriptions and memberships that renew once a year in a single quiet charge on a statement, instead of showing up as a monthly line anyone's actually watching. A membership like that can sit unused for years and never once get caught. This isn't about becoming someone who never buys anything or feeling guilty over every purchase. The issue was never buying itself. It's paying for something and then leaving all of its value sitting on the table, untouched. The rule going forward is simple. You don't need gold to repair your own things. Before replacing anything, ask 3 questions. Is this actually unusable? Can it be repaired? Am I replacing something broken or just chasing something new? Use what you have before buying more. Repair before replacing. Finish what's open before buying what's new. Every dollar wasted had to be earned first. That's the whole cost of it. Stopping the waste protects money you already have, but protecting money isn't the same as building more of it. And building more doesn't require a dramatic overhaul. It just requires putting some of it somewhere your everyday spending can't reach. Principle 3. Sakidori Choken. Save before you spend. The third principle changes the order money moves in, completely. Most people run their money through the same formula without questioning it. Income minus expenses equals savings, which means saving gets whatever happens to survive the month. For a lot of people, that's nothing. There's a different order. Sakidori Choken. Save first. Income minus savings equals what you're actually allowed to spend. This isn't just informal advice passed around. Japan built it into the system. Many Japanese employers offer a government-backed payroll savings program called Zaikei Chochiku. A portion of every paycheck can move directly into savings before an employee ever sees it, and certain versions of the program come with real tax advantages. The habit isn't left up to willpower. It's built into how people get paid in the first place. The order matters for a specific reason. Money that's visible gets treated as available whether or not it was ever meant to be spent. That's not a willpower problem. It's how the brain treats a number it can see sitting in an account. This doesn't require a big number to start. $50 is a real place to begin, not a consolation prize. Forcing a bigger number than an income can actually support usually backfires. The money gets pulled right back out within a few weeks, which defeats the entire point. The number matters less than the order. Watch what that looks like for Jordan. $50 moves out automatically the same morning the paycheck lands, before Jordan even opens the banking app. Whatever's left is just what's there when Jordan finally checks the balance, not what's left after a decision. Spending adjusts to it within a few weeks the same way it would adjust to any number because it's the only one Jordan was ever looking at. Leave that same $50 sitting visible in the account instead, and it tends to get spent anyway, a little at a time, simply because it's there to spend. Same income, same intentions, a different outcome. The order matters at any amount, but the gap widens the bigger the number gets. Someone saving $150 a month invested at that same 10% average ends up with close to $29,000 over 10 years. Someone saving $750 a month at that same 10% ends up with close to $143,000. Same amount of time, same return, a completely different outcome depending on how much the order gets applied to. And that's exactly where the next principle picks up, because starting small and building from there is its own system. The setup itself is simple. On payday, before anything else touches the account, emergency savings first, then any investing, then bills, then whatever's left is there to spend, guilt-free. Automate as much of the first step as possible so it never depends on willpower. Money meant for saving shouldn't have to survive 30 days of temptation before it counts. It should already be gone by the time temptation shows up. Principle 4. Kaizen. Improve your system. Gradually. The fourth principle is about what happens to a habit once it exists. Most financial plans fail for the same reason. They start too big. Save $1,000 this month. Cut out every restaurant. Fix everything. Starting Monday. Monday goes fine. By Wednesday, it's falling apart. By Friday, nothing's changed. There's a Japanese approach built on the opposite idea. Kaizen. Small, continuous improvement, repeated without fail. This isn't a lifestyle hashtag. It's the same philosophy that became central to Toyota's manufacturing system and spread through Japanese industry in the decades. Not through massive change all at once, through tiny improvement sustained long enough to compound. The research on behavior change agrees with this. Small changes that don't feel like a threat to the way someone already lives are the ones that actually stick. Dramatic overhauls tend to trigger resistance almost immediately, which is a large part of why they collapse just as fast. Most people miss one part of this, though. The goal was never staying small forever. Small is just how you start without quitting in the first 2 weeks. The real practice has 2 parts. Start small enough to actually continue, then increase it before it gets comfortable enough to feel permanent. Watch what that looks like for Jordan. Remember the $50 that started moving out automatically before Jordan ever saw it. That's where Kaizen actually starts. Month 1, $50. Barely noticeable. Month 3, $75. Month 6, $150. And Jordan barely remembers the time it wasn't happening. If that $50 were still $50 a year later, that wouldn't be Kaizen anymore. That would just be standing still with a nicer name. This works on more than savings. One extra debt payment, added consistently, does more than an aggressive payoff plan abandoned by month 2. Take a $5,000 credit card balance at a typical interest rate. Paying a flat $100 a month takes over 11 years to clear and costs almost $9,000 in interest along the way. Add $50 more to that same payment. $150 a month instead, and the timeline drops to about 4 years with the interest cut to under $3,000. Same $50 extra, completely different outcome. One new skill, built before chasing 5 side hustles at once. A grocery budget trimmed by $20 this month, then $20 more the next, does more over a year than a dramatic overhaul that collapses in week 3. Ask yourself this: what's one financial habit I can make slightly better this month without needing motivation every single day to keep it going? That's the move. Not dramatic. Repeatable. Financial transformation usually looks boring while it's actually happening. It only looks impressive later, once it's compounded into something visible. But even a system like this can quietly get more expensive over time if the version of enough you're chasing keeps moving every time you get a little more. Principle 5. Wabi-sabi. Stop financing perfection. The fifth principle deals with a different kind of leak, one that has nothing to do with waste. The Japanese have an idea built for this: wabi-sabi, finding value in things that are simple, worn, imperfect. A scratch isn't a flaw. It's proof something got used. This one has an actual origin, not just a mood. A 16th century tea master named Sen no Rikyu helped perfect wabi-cha. It's a style of tea ceremony built around plain, handmade objects instead of the expensive imported ones everyone else wanted. The plain bowl was the point. It said something honest instead of something impressive. Most people feel the opposite pull constantly, though, wanting the newer version even when the one already owned still works fine. There's a real explanation for why that pull is so strong. Hedonic adaptation. A person gets used to whatever they already have surprisingly fast, and the baseline for what feels normal keeps quietly resetting upward. Picture one thing in your life that still works completely fine. A phone, say, doing everything it did last year, nothing wrong with it. Then a new model comes out, barely different from the one already in your pocket, and suddenly yours feels old. Nothing about your phone changed. Your perception did. That's hedonic adaptation doing exactly what it does. Translate that into money, and the real cost isn't buying things. Upgrading a car that still runs fine. Redoing a kitchen because a trend changed. Refreshing a wardrobe that already covers everything you need. None of that is fixing a problem. It's financing a feeling, and upgrading rarely stops at the sticker price. A newer car usually means a bigger loan and more interest paid over the life of it. It often means higher insurance because newer generally costs more to replace. And the item being replaced, the one that still worked, gets sold or traded in for a fraction of what it was worth, a quiet loss of its own. The upgrade is never just one purchase. It's a purchase, plus everything it drags in behind it. This is exactly how a raise disappears. More income doesn't automatically build more wealth because the same adaptation that made the phone feel outdated keeps resetting what feels like enough. Bigger paycheck, bigger apartment, nicer car. You never actually arrive because arriving was never the goal. Moving the target was. This is backed by real data, not just a feeling. A recent Goldman Sachs survey found that 40% of households earning $300,000 a year or more say they're living paycheck to paycheck. That's a higher share than households earning $50,000 to $100,000 at 36%. More income and somehow more financial stress, not less. It happens once the apartment, the car, and the wardrobe have all quietly upgraded to match the new number. Before your next upgrade, ask one question. Has this actually stopped working? Or have I just gotten bored of it? Those are two completely different problems, and only one of them costs money to solve. Pick one category where you upgrade out of habit instead of necessity. Keep what you have until there's an actual reason to replace it, not just a newer version sitting in a store window. There's no income high enough to finance permanent dissatisfaction. At some point, the upgrading has to stop being the plan. Contentment closes that gap. But there's still a difference between not wanting to upgrade and actually having the discipline to wait when you do want something. Principle 6. Gamen. Learn to wait. The sixth principle is about timing, not willpower. Modern shopping was built to remove one specific thing, the pause between wanting something and buying it. See it, click it, it's paid for and on its way before there's been time to think twice. This has a name now, and it's become an entire industry. Buy now, pay later. It removes the one thing that used to naturally stop an impulse purchase, simply not having the money for it yet. The purchase happens today. The reckoning happens later, in installments, often with fees attached the moment a payment gets missed. The Japanese have a word for the opposite of that. Gaman. The ability to sit with discomfort or with wanting something without immediately reaching for a purchase to make the feeling go away. The word comes out of Zen Buddhist teaching, where it originally described reining in the ego, the kind of pride that resists being told no. Over time, it became the word for holding your own impulses in check, which is exactly what a waiting period asks of you. There's real research behind why the wait actually works. The intensity of a craving or an urge to buy fades measurably within a short window of time as long as nothing feeds it in the meantime. Most wanting isn't permanent, it's temporary, dressed up to feel urgent. Picture the moment itself. Something sits in a cart, One tab left open, waiting on a decision. A week passes. The tab is still open, and the wanting has already gone quiet, the way most wanting does once it's given room to breathe. A sale countdown, a stressful day, the feeling of deserving something, all of it fades faster than it feels like it will in the moment. The waiting doesn't need to be extreme to work. Making every purchase wait a full month gets unrealistic fast, and most people abandon it within a week. A better version scales the wait to the size of the decision. Something under $50, barely worth pausing for. Something over $100 or $200 that earns a real wait. A couple of days for a moderate purchase, a week or more for anything bigger. This doesn't mean never buying anything on impulse again. Most of what gets caught by a short wait was never a real want to begin with. Take 5 unplanned purchases a year, averaging $150 each. Catch them with a week of waiting instead of buying on the spot, and that's $750 a year that simply never left the account. Not because of restriction, because of timing. The point isn't punishment. It's giving yourself the time businesses are actively trying to remove. Take saved cards off checkout pages. Leave things sitting in a cart instead of buying immediately. Write a purchase down before making it and look at it again the next day. You don't have to stop wanting things. You just need enough time to find out whether the wanting was ever going to last. That kind of patience protects money from leaving impulsively. But there's a different kind of pressure that has nothing to do with impulse control. It's the pressure of everything you can't actually change about your financial situation. Principle 7, Shogunai. Focus on what you can control. The 7th and final principle is the hardest one and probably the most important. A lot of financial stress isn't actually about money. It's about things that can't be changed no matter how much energy gets spent on them, starting later than someone else. A mistake made years ago, a family that had money or didn't, what the market does tomorrow. None of that moves, no matter how hard it gets thought about. The Japanese have a name for it, shogunai. It cannot be helped. It's an expression used for accepting circumstances that simply cannot be changed, not surrender. Just energy spent on what could actually change something instead of on what couldn't. Psychologists call that same split locus of control, the difference between energy spent on what's genuinely outside your influence and energy spent on what actually responds to effort. People who consistently sort the two tend to handle setbacks better. Not because their circumstances are easier, it's because none of their energy gets wasted on things that were never going to move. It circles back to something from the very beginning. Someone else's car, house, or paycheck tells you almost nothing about what's actually in their bank account. Comparing your progress against a life you can only see from the outside was never a fair comparison. The person parking the nicer car in the driveway next to you could be 3 payments behind on it. You'd have no way of knowing, and neither would anyone watching yours. Anything seen online makes this worse. A vacation photo, a new kitchen. All of it shows a single curated moment, never the statement sitting behind it. One honest correction here. This isn't saying the financial future is entirely within anyone's control. What's actually true is smaller and more useful. Not every outcome is controllable, but a lot of the decisions that shift the odds are. Split your financial life into 2 lists. Outside your control, yesterday's decisions, somebody else's income, what you were or weren't given early on, the economy. Being late to something, inside your control, what gets spent today, the savings rate, debt payments, what skills get built, whether the plan continues after a hard month or gets abandoned. For everything in the first list, the job is acknowledgement, then letting it go. For everything in the second, the job is picking the next action and actually taking it. Financial peace was never about controlling everything. It comes from knowing exactly where control ends and using every bit of it on the side where it begins. 7 ideas. None of them loud. None of them require a bigger paycheck to start. See where the money's going. Stop paying for things that never get used. Move savings out of reach before spending gets a chance at it. Build the habit small enough to keep, then let it grow. Stop financing a feeling of not enough. Give a purchase enough time to prove it was real. Let go of what was never yours to control and spend everything you have on what actually is. None of this looks impressive from the outside. That's kind of the point. The version of wealth built this way doesn't need anyone to notice it. It's not proving anything to a neighbor, a friend, or a comment section. It's just quietly, consistently true, whether anyone's watching or not. A couple of years ago, none of this would have made sense to me. I was too busy trying to look like I had it together to notice I actually didn't. Pick one of these 7. Not all 7 tonight. 1. Start there. Let it get boring. Let it compound. The car doesn't have to be nicer. The apartment doesn't have to be bigger. It just has to be yours, paid for, with room left over. That's not flashy. It was never supposed to be. Thank you for watching. If this helped you see your money a little differently, subscribe for more.